What's going on, people? Welcome back to another opposition preview, the first one this season. I'm joined by Billy from Beesotted Brentford to talk about the game on the weekend. I've got a smile on my face, Billy, because you guys managed to come to the Premier League in your first game, facing a alleged top six side, and just run them off the park. And I'm not saying that because you're here now, but I've always wanted Brentford to get promoted. You've always done it a bit differently in my view, in terms of you always had quality players. You've scouted these players from different countries and different areas and brought them up. You got Thomas Frank as a manager who's not scared to play proper football. But, let's start with the game on Friday. I mean, we don't have to talk about it, but we can just talk about it here for a bit. So you beat Arsenal 2-0, but did you expect anything like that happening before the game?
I'll tell you something. First of all, DK, thanks very much for inviting me on your opposition preview. This is it's a bit strange for me, to be honest with you. Last week I did Arsenal Fan TV, which is one of those things where I've known Robbie I've known him from before he was actually even doing Arsenal Fan TV, when he was still a surveyor. And we were doing our video blogs. We started off in 2013 doing video blogs back at Beesotted back in the day. So, I've seen Robbie's journey going through. We've done a little journey, but we've always been lower league, as you know. We've always been Division 3, like third tier, got up to the second tier. And that was like, I enjoyed that. It was good enough for us. But last week, all of a sudden, boom, they've asked us to come on. Boom, now Crystal Palace have asked us to come on. And it's a bit strange because I'll be honest with you, I ain't used to this because I'm normally used to going to Accrington Stanley and Southend and Grimsby. It is. And listen, I'm not knocking them places because we had so much jokes going over to those places about I could reel off stories upon stories upon stories about going to those places. But the reason I've come back to that is that you've invited me on, which I appreciate. Thank you very much. And it's just a weird scenario to say, hold on a second. We're now playing Crystal Palace, and we played Arsenal last week. And normally we do it. If it's a cup game, then you play a cup game. And then after the cup game, you go back and then the following week you play Doncaster, or something like that. But now it's like week on week on week. So you have to forgive me for getting used to this situation because I'm certainly not used to it. And like I said, last week, Arsenal, it was coming up against Arsenal. It was quite an emotional day, I have to say, because, like I said to you, all Brentford fans, there's very few Brentford fans remember the last time that we were in the top flight. So most of us Brentford fans remember the fact that we were in, Division 3, Division 4, the third and the fourth tier. For most of my life, probably for sort of kind of 95% of my life, we've played in Division 3. And we haven't gone anywhere. We haven't gone up. We haven't gone down. We've just stayed in Division 3 for that whole time. Yeah, we got relegated a few times, came up again and stuff like that. So for me and all the fans, for us to have all of a sudden, get the pub beforehand, we can the Globe, and to go to the Globe beforehand, have a few good drinks before that with your friends, and then after we got the walk to the new stadium as well, because obviously like the old stadium, we walked one way, but now we had the walk to the new stadium. To have done that walk, get down to the stadium, get in, get inside, hear the singing inside, because, a lot of people again laughed at us because we're only 17,500, but we don't care about that because as far as we're concerned, you pack it out with Brentford fans who are absolutely potty for it. That's all that matters as far as I'm concerned. It's not about taking in sort of like 10,000 Man United supporters who just want to try and see their team play. And before you know it, you've got a really watered down fan situation. Palace know all about that. You've got that homestyle end, and that homestyle end is rocking because you've got people in that end that want to be there, for Palace. They're not there on the glory train at all. You're going there for Palace. And I like that. The same thing with us. We don't need no glory hunters. We don't want the glory hunters. All the people that want to come down to Brentford now that we're in the Premier League, we want you to come down to Brentford to support us, not trying to come down there so you can get a cheap ticket to Man United or Man City. Yes. So hearing that noise at Brentford, I'm telling you something, that was something before the game and then during the game as well, the noise that we had. But then on top of that, emotional. Obviously, emotional. The icing on the cake was Canos's goal. What a goal that he scored as well. You could argue to say that Leno was in the wrong because it was on his near post and he should have put it around the post, but that doesn't matter. That's one of them things that happen. And then to put that second goal in, and at the time even, it was one of those games where, and I'm not being biggish about it because you saw the game and but when we played Bournemouth in the playoff semi-final, I was nervous. I was nervous all the way to the very end, you know what I'm saying? Because good side at any time. You know, they've got players who could kill us. But with that Arsenal game, I just felt that we kind of dealt with it really well. And the fact that they were shooting from, 25, 30, 35 yards the whole time, for us, I'm like, listen, I played Barnsley. I was scared against Barnsley. I was scared against Stoke City, but this Arsenal game was something different. So it was a really good feeling when the final whistle went and the singing the Hey Jude, which is our anthem. It's our You Never Walk Alone, in effect, because when I started going to Brentford 40 years ago, and I walk into that stadium, which was obviously bigger before, with a big Royal Oak End that held about 8,000 people, and you see everybody in the stadium just singing Hey Jude. I'm just like, wow, this is we've arrived. We have arrived. And listen, I'm going to say this as well, because I always have to say this: we may lose the next 37 games, right? And that is something that we know it might happen, but it doesn't matter, because no one expected us to be here. And we're here now, and we're enjoying it, and we're here for the ride. And just whatever happens, happens.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think you'll lose 37. I mean, on a weekend, you might get another result there as well. But I mean, we'll be talking about it in more detail in just a second. But I doubt you lose the next 36 games. Maybe you might lose the next 36. I doubt it. You look like a quality side. But for people who haven't watched Brentford in the Championship or even in the Arsenal game that don't know much about Thomas Frank, how would you describe your playing style and how Thomas Frank approaches games?
The best way to describe, our playing style comes from the ethos that the club has. And the owner, Matthew Benham, when he took over the club around about 2010, he took it over sort of when we were still in the bottom tier, sort of the bottom tier going up to the next division, to the third tier. Again, I keep saying these things because it makes it a lot easier to imagine Division 1 when Division 1 is really Division 3. And he took us over them. But when he came in, he had a really clear vision for what he wanted to with this club. He said, first of all, I want us to play passing football. I want us to play good football. I want us to develop young players, he said. He wanted us to develop young players. I want us to have players with a certain type of ethos. So they have this no dickheads policy in the club where they pick up certain types of players. And also the staff and everything like that are going to be exactly the same. So that has kind of developed slowly over the years. Yes, we've made a few mistakes and it hasn't got quite right. But in general, what we do is that we play football. And so when Uwe Rosler took over back in, I think, 2011, I remember he started to play football, which was passing game. I remember as fans, and I don't know if you remember what this is like, but when you used to just like, when you get the ball and your football is get the ball, get it up there to the big man. Uwe Rosler was trying to get the players to kind of pass the ball up for the back. And all the fans are going, "Oi, get it up there. Get it in the mixer."
We're having it now on the Vieira. We played one game against the champions of Europe against Chelsea, and people already saying, "Oh, what's happening? What's all this playing out from the back? Like it's already happening now at Palace." So I fully understand. Even after one game, I fully understand what you mean.
It's so frustrating. It was so frustrating, and it was like he doesn't know what he's doing, and and also the players didn't know what they're doing because they weren't used to it. And also, you've got a team which was basically, the old school team that was used to hoofing it. And so playing out for the back was just like, what's this all about? So the players were struggling. They'll try and play it out. They make a mistake. Then all the fans will get on their back. So after that, they try and hoof it. But it took a while. But after a year and a half, he managed to get the style in. And then all the fans are purring, proud. Oh, I'm really proud. Even if we lose every game, I love the football we're playing. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like from there, it's moved on. Every manager, every head coach that's come on, they've brought on this style of football and they've brought the type of players to actually play that type of football. So in effect, we are very much a passing team. And at one stage, what happened is in the Championship, we were passing, and I think we were having like 700, 800, possibly even 900 passes per game. But what was happening is that everyone used to, I don't know if you remember, everyone used to call Brentford the nearly team. So people initially start to make fun of us. Then they saw the football they play. So then all of a sudden people start to go, "Oh, Brentford, they're quite a good team." Then you get other fans saying, "Yeah, well, they're not that good," because every time like they just keep messing up or they keep missing at the last minute. And the reason why is that we were playing the nice football, passing football, but we didn't have that kind of tougher, rougher edge to us. We didn't know how to flip it up a little bit. So if a team came down and basically put two banks of four against us, put the defenders up against us, we kind of couldn't play around it or didn't know how to play around it or didn't know about going long, or didn't know about going tough because we couldn't do that. So we were struggling against teams that technically probably we shouldn't have struggled about. But what it did is that it made you realize, listen, just because you're playing nice football doesn't mean that you're going to win a game. You need to know how to win a game, how to change it up to win a game. So the last couple of years, the year that we lost to Fulham in the playoff final, we were brilliant that year. Some people would argue that we're a better footballing side than we are now because we played beautiful football, but we were losing these games 1-0 here and there because we couldn't flip it up. And we lost to Fulham in that final, which was quite sad actually, because they are massive rivals, as you may not understand that, but it is quite a big thing in West London. Fulham, Brentford, it goes back all the way to the 80s, and it's quite bad actually. So it's just one of them things. So we lost to them, and to losing to them was quite bad. Probably not as bad losing to them on TV as it would have been having them in the stadium taking the piss out of us as we're walking out the stadium. So I'll take that, I'm saying, all day long. Yeah. So we lost that game, and the following season, what we noticed is that Thomas, he obviously he checked it out and he went, tell you what, hold on a second here, I'm going to change things up a little bit. I need to ensure that we are tough at the back, we are tight at the back, and also, midfield, we are doing particular things in midfield, and we're not going to get caught out what we did next season. So we were much more pragmatic last season. Some people might say that we weren't as pretty. We're still playing good football, but we definitely weren't as pretty as the season before. But then looking at it defensively, I think we had a better defense from the season before. Attacking wise, I think we scored more goals than the season before, and we actually ended up with more points. So we ended up with 87 points last season, where the previous season we ended up with 82 points. And the irony is that the team that actually got automatically promoted the season before, West Brom, had 83 points. So they had 4 points less than us, and we ended up in the playoffs. So it kind of gives you a shift as to how we kind of changed our game to become a better team in producing results. And that's served us really well, because now what's obviously happened, we've played at Arsenal, and everyone knows Arsenal. They love the ball. They love the ball. You know what I'm saying? They're like, you go bing, bing, pinging the ball around all over the place. Arsenal obviously had more possession than us, but Thomas Frank did his homework in that game, and he went, okay, fair enough, but I've seen Arsenal weaknesses this, right? Okay, so what we'll do is that aerial, we'll hit them in the air, which I'll be honest with you, Brentford were never good in the air, never. We'll always get battered in the air by other teams, like by your Cardiffs, by your Millwalls, by your Stoke Cities. Always, we're trying to play the ball around them, and they're just like, boom, see you later. So the fact that all of a sudden we decided that we're going to pass it around a bit, then Bush, we put the ball up because we know that Ivan Toney is going to beat Ben White. You know what I'm saying? We just know these things. And for me, I think that and we talked about it on our podcast, Pride of West London. If you check it out, we recorded it yesterday. We've got a Crystal Palace fan on there as well, giving your side of things. And we talked about, if you got Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV there as well, actually doing a little thing, definitely check it out because it's worth for the preview. But we just said that Thomas Frank out-tacticked Arteta in the fact that, he did what he needed to do to win that game. And that's what we learned in the Championship, playing these different sides. You need to be adaptable. You need to have a plan B and a plan C. And we, for years, never had a plan B. So I'm hoping that plan B will serve us well. I mean, it's interesting because I said we got Robbie on this podcast and he was accusing us of being Stoke City. He's going, yeah, well, you did well, but, you're the new Stoke City. And I thought, well, I don't know. Have you actually seen us play? Because, we played Stoke City last season, and Stoke City did a Stoke City on us, what you call Stoke City, and they beat us because they did, what they do. I said, no. I said, what we do is that we have changed our style according to the team, the opposition. And the other thing is that they talked about the long throws that we did with Mads Beck Sorensen. But did anyone notice that Mads Beck Sorensen only came on for the last 20 minutes? So we weren't doing long throws for the whole game. It's when he came on the last 20 minutes and we thought, tell you what, we've got this in our artillery. Boom, there you go. First throw comes in, Bosch, headers beaten, back of the net. So to talk about our playing style, we've got different types of playing style. We go 3 at the back, we go 4 at the back. We can go 1 up front, we can go 2 up front, and we actually can flip it within the game. So that's a learning curve that we've had from not getting out of the Championship as quick as we'd liked.
That's very good to see, though. I mean, as a fan, it must be, because we've seen under, I don't want to mention him, but we have to talk about it, Roy Hodgson quickly. I mean, he had only one playing style, and only he might change up formation in terms of 4-4-2 or 4-3-3, and team just figured us out. You need to have plan B, you need to have plan C, and the one thing that we can take as Palace fans from what you've said is that it's a process. You have to learn. It takes time. The manager has to grow as well. So for Palace fans that's already trying to write off Vieira after one game, just take a deep breath, just calm down. As we can see it, Brentford, and in terms of how they're playing, they just came up. We don't know how you guys will do, but I'm pretty sure you will stay up if you continue playing the type of football, if you have a plan B, plan C. So, as Palace fans, we need to be patient as well. But we talked about Thomas Frank being this genius. What's the one weakness that you can get, that we can potentially exploit on a weekend that Thomas Frank, maybe that he needs to slightly up his game in?
I mean, obviously, coming on to an opposition podcast and giving you all our weaknesses, I'm not going to do that as such. But I will do, because the fact is that if your scouting team, and your scouting team are, what they should be, they should know exactly what is going down with Brentford and what our strengths and what our weaknesses. What I would say is there's a few things. First of all, it's the fact that Brentford are the fact that Brentford are a new division. Okay, so I think that's a weakness for us. So we're in a new division, so it's about sort of scouting. So for example, if we were in the Championship, me as a Brentford fan, all my friends, Thomas Frank, all the players, the scouting staff, they'll know everything about Middlesbrough. They'll know them like the back of their hand. They know the size of the pitch. They'll know the stadium. They know it light. They know the acoustics. They know if their fans moan if they go one goal behind. They know, you know what I'm saying? They know that. They know if they're playing a pressing game or if they're going to go 2 banks of 4. They know all this kind of stuff, and they got their heads around that. Over here, yes, you could do as much research as you want to, but we've never actually been there before. So every game we're going into, it's the first game that we're going there. So we don't really have a barometer as to what it's going to be like. And I think, the first season is why it's going to be very important for us, because it's going to give us a real tester as to what it's going to be like to walk against the Homesdale end, you know what I'm saying? And to walk out in Manchester United, and to walk out in Liverpool, because those have a massive effect on the game, but also the type of that they play. The games that they play and how the fans react to it as well, because that can affect you as a player. If you've got like 50,000 plans just going at you as a young 19-year-old player, which we've got quite a few of them, they could be like that, or they might not be, you see. So I think that's one thing that may go against us. And another thing, again, that may go against us is we in the Championship, we're very good at creating opportunity. Okay, so we were very good at creating opportunity. If you believe in stats, it's all about the XG. As Brentford, as we're quite a statistical club, as you know, and us as fans at Beesotted as well. Like I said, if you check out our podcast, Pride of West London, we've got a little stats section, which we actually do a little Arsenal stats and a Palace stats section on this last podcast as well, because for us it's very important to get an idea of kind of where it's at. And stats-wise, we were very similar to Leeds, right? We were very, very similar to Leeds in the Championship. Leeds were by far the best team. They were the best team this season that we went up. And we were actually, statistic-wise, the second best team, even though we didn't finish second. West Brom finished second. And what it was is that we were very good at creating very good quality chances. Okay, that means that, in effect, you get there, put the ball on the 6-yard box so somebody could just put the ball in the back of the net. That's technically kind of like that is really what you want to do, not necessarily doing, even though they might be great at it, what Arsenal were doing, they were taking shots from 35, 40 yards and hoping they go in the back of the net. As a Palace fan, when they go in the back of the net, they're brilliant. But the chances of that happening are quite slight. I mean, if you want to do a stats thing, about 3 in 100 or 4 in 100 of those shots go in the back of the net. But when they do, it's a marvelous moment. So we were very good at creating chances where basically it was like 50-50. They're in front of the goal, and it's a 50-50 or a 60-40 chance of it going to the back of the net. But what we did is we created all these chances, but we weren't converting them all. But the reason why we're doing so well is because we were creating so many chances. The ones that we converted were back of the net, so it still put us up there. And Leeds were very much the same. Basically, missed a shed load of chances. And that comes down to the fact that, you've got really good build-up play, but you haven't got necessarily the high-quality strikers that you have in the Premier League. So the fear that I have is that if we come to the Premier League, we're not able to create as many chances as we did in the Championship. Like we did in the Arsenal game, we didn't create nearly as many chances, but the ones that we actually created, we put them away. But if that doesn't happen game on game, we might find ourselves sort of kind of like finding ourselves in a little bit of trouble, because we're not creating the chances, and the chances that we do get, we don't put them into the back of the net. So I think the next few weeks we'll see how we'll actually kind of fare in that situation.
Yeah, in terms of creating chances as well, I think it might balance out. There's sides, of course, there's quality sides. Like you look at City and how much money they've spent, and sides like Liverpool with their front three. Of course, they'll create more chances than any other team. But I think it might balance out in the process. If you're a solid defensive side, and if you still do create chances, then I think you should be good enough to stay up. Whilst we're talking about managers, quickly, your honest perspective and honest thoughts on Patrick Vieira as Palace manager. Neutrals have written him off since day one. I'm not too sure why, because I mean, many Palace fans haven't watched Patrick Vieira before, and he's done well in Nice and when he went to New York City as well. What do you think of him, and do you think he'll be successful at Palace?
Very, very. I'll tell you something. For a start, being a Brentford fan, I'm used to people writing you off very early, So I try not to write anybody off, because I think it's quite unfair, and also I think that certain people revel in being written off early. We do as well, And so for Patrick Vieira, I mean, obviously he was a brilliant player, and he's I've never met him, but he seems like a really, really, really nice bloke, a really level-headed bloke. I know he was at NYC, New York's. He's over in New York, actually managing the team out there. I know quite a bit about the MLS, because I just think the MLS is. A lot of people might laugh at me, but I think the MLS is going to be producing quite a lot of players over in the UK within the next couple of years, because there's some movements happening in the MLS out there. It used to be a joke league, but now actually they've put some money in. I think they're I know they're actually really looking towards the World Cup in 2026. So they're giving players caps, they're giving them opportunities, and then they're going to be shipping them out to Europe. So you're going to see some movement from the MLS. Trust me, in the next couple of years. We had this kid called DK who played for Orlando. Right, he came from university, played for Orlando, came straight out of Orlando, Bosch, and the next minute he's like got an international cap. The following day he gets transferred to Barnsley. And before you know it, he scored 10, 11 goals for Barnsley. So the reason why I'm saying that is that the MLS is like probably up there, wherever that's there. So Vieira was managing at the MLS probably a couple of years ago, but still the standard, and to try, there's pressure, and you've got to try and get results there. And he did all right out there at Nice, from what I can gather, and I haven't fully done my research, so you have to apologise to me on that. I think that he did okay. I'm not sure, and but also the other thing you have to remember is that with Nice are kind of they see themselves as one of the top 4 sides probably in France. So you've got quite a lot of pressure, when you're at Nice, to actually do the business. So from what I can understand, he's trying to get them to play a particular type of football. He's obviously got an ethos as how he wants them to play. And so we'll see. The negative side of it is, and a lot of people say, is that he doesn't know the Championship. I think that's a really, the Championship, the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. You got promoted.
You know what I'm saying? I just can't get my head around it. I can't get my head around it.
You're not there
he doesn't know the Premier League, but I think that could be quite a negative thing to say. And a lot of people say that about teams it's not there. They said that about Brentford in our first season of the Championship. You've got no Championship-ready players, and you haven't got a Championship-ready manager, and then we end up going to the playoffs that first season. So what I think is that it's not about having the experience. It's about having the right know-how, the right plans, the right tactics, and also having a really good team around you, which may be both on the pitch and off the pitch. Because I think that if you do that, you can do anything that you want to. Yes, he didn't have a great start against Chelsea, but he was playing Chelsea, who are behind Leeds United, the champions of Europe. Because Leeds United, the champions of Europe, you probably haven't played them yet. You'll find out when Leeds come down to your stadium. But that is a chant that they sing all the time. They're the champions of Europe, so we never forget that these are the champions of Europe. So you are playing the second champions of Europe. You see, Chelsea, Chelsea. So that's going to be a tough game. And our stats guy, he pointed out the fact that you didn't create many opportunities in the first, 53 minutes, I think it was, and again, your XG was quite low, but it's going to be tough against Chelsea. And Vieira is still finding his feet and out a way to do it. So I wouldn't write him off as yet. I think it's bad. I think it's bad management for any team to bring a manager in and then sort of kind of sack them within a couple of months. Because at the end of the day, it's not that manager's fault. It's got to be your fault as the owner, as the directors, for not doing your due diligence to be getting in the right person in the first place. If you have to sack them after 2 months, for me, you've got to bring them in. You've got to help them on their way to do what you always thought that they were going to do. And if that means you've got to give them a couple of years, that's what you have to do. Because sometimes that's how long it takes for them to actually build what they want to do.
Exactly. And also, if you're trying to play a different type of football than what you've done in the last 4 years, I mean, if anyone who knows football, it's not just like maybe Tuchel can go Chelsea and he can change it straight away because he's got world-class players. But if you're at Palace and clubs like Brentford, it could take a bit of time. I mean, it's normal. It's a normal part of the process that people need to get used to. And I guess as Palace fans, we'll get used to it after a while. Because after the first Chelsea game, I saw people start. I was like, "What are we complaining about?" There were still positives out that game. If you take away the stats, he still did change it about. There's a bit of game management. He played the youngsters, so I think it takes a bit of time that we need to get used to. But talking about some players on your side of things, we talked about Canos. There's also Tony as well, who's just brilliant in front of goal last season in Championship. Would you pick out them two as the key players for you guys that we need to watch out for?
I could listen. If I don't know how long your podcast is, I could be here till next Sunday, as you can probably tell, reading off players. I mean, I'm so proud of these players that are coming because, like I said, most of them are Championship players who have turned into Premier League players. Ivan Toney, most people know about him. He was a player that came from Division 1 Peterborough, the top scorer in Division 1. He replaced Ollie Watkins, who's a player that we loved at Brentford. Didn't want him to leave. He would have stayed with Brentford if we went up. We didn't go up. He went to Aston Villa. He's doing really well. He's playing for England, and I wish him all the best. But then they said, as a club does, because we've got this special system, this statistical analysis system where we find players that people have never heard of or don't really rate or whatever, we just, our owner, he owns this system. It's basically his job. That's what he does. And they found Ivan Toney and they said, oh, don't worry, Ivan Toney's going to take his place. He'll be fine. And back in the day when we kept on replacing players like Andre Gray and Scott Hogan, we were really nervous. Like, we're like, no, you can't say that. You can't make them, you're not going to make them better. But as time has gone on, we've got used to it now. And when the club says, look, we've got to sell a player, as a fan, of course I don't want the players to leave. I want them to stay there forever because it's a bit rubbish when your players keep leaving year on year. But when Watkins went, we knew he had to go. When Tony came in, we said, let's see how he's going to do. Had a couple of sort of dodgy first games. Then after that, bosh. And he just went off. And he's a very good player. You can see him. He's really focused. He's really driven. He knows what he's doing, but also a lot of people know him as a goal scorer. It ain't really even his goal scoring. He does everything. He's flipping as a defender. He's out there in a wing. He's laying people off. He is doing everything. Honestly, he is an unbelievable player. And that's why, I think in the Arsenal game, it was great because Arsenal thought, right, we need to put two players on him. So they put Ben White and somebody else, two players to try and stop him playing. But he was like, that's not me. I need to score a goal. All I need to do, I need to head the ball to somebody else, and then they'll score the goal because that's kind of the kind of player that he is. He's almost like an unselfish but at times selfish striker who can do everything. So he's great. Brian Mbeumo is a player that I love. He was part of the BMW, if you heard of them a couple of years ago. The Benrahma, Watkins, and Mbeumo. Or Benrahma and Mbeumo Watkins, BMW. They scored 55 goals between them in the Championship, across the top. The three of them, two wingers and a striker. And Mbeumo he was on fire that year. But he got COVID at the back end of that year, which is a real shame. And then he came back and he was a bit of a shadow of himself. And last season he was the shadow of himself. But this season he looks like he's going to be back on fire because he's the one that picked up the ball and smacked it against the post in the first half against Arsenal, if you remember rightly. And he shimmied a couple of players in the area and then he dragged it wide when it's probably easier to put it in the back of the net. But, listen, we're not having a go. We're playing in the Premier League, so we're not having a go at players for doing stuff like that. He's cool. So there's a couple of players that giving you that. I always have to give a mention to Frank the Tank Onyeka. So he's a player that we just bought from FC Midtjylland, which is actually our sister club in Denmark. Owner Matthew Benham also bought a club in Denmark called FC Midtjylland, which you probably know. They played Man United in the Champions League. They played Celtic, knocked them out of the Champions League a few weeks ago. But when he bought them, probably about 6 years ago, I think he bought them. They literally were like buckets outside. They were like almost kind of bankrupt. They were in all sorts of problems. He went in there, said, look, I want to do my statistical stuff with you. They were like totally open to it. Within 2 years or 3 years, they'd won the league and they're in the Champions League. So, he kind of took them to another level out there. But there was no real relationship between the two clubs because he wanted to keep us separate. He just thought Brentford are doing their thing. If I start mixing and matching the two, then it's going to get really messy. So we always kind of saw what was going on. I mean, I went out to Midtjylland, saw a game out there, got some Danish friends. We talked, they'd come over to Brentford and they've seen our games. So we kept it very separate until we got to the Premier League. Then all of a sudden we got to the Premier League. Then the first signing that we made, and that was actually interesting because it was actually made on our podcast. You check it out, prideofwest.london. There are 2 directors of football, Phil Giles and Rasmus Atkinson, rang him up, said, "Hey, Phil, get down the pub. We're going to get you down the pub, 60 fans in the garden. We're going to sit down there. We're going to have a live podcast in front of them. You just tell us everything." They went, "All right then." So they came down the pub and we just sitting down there, just chatting about everything. And then all of a sudden I dropped it on their head and I said to them, "Oh yeah, so Frank the Tank Onyeka, so when's he coming?" And they were like, "Oh," because they didn't know that, it got out. I got word that it was coming out. So we dropped it on the podcast live to the director of football, who kind of tried to skirt around the issue, about him coming to the club. It was funny. You definitely should check it out. prideofwest.london, Thomas Frank, not Thomas. We got Thomas Frank down earlier as well, down the pub as well on the previous podcast. But this was Phil Giles and Rasmus Ankerson. But Frank the Tank Onyeka, 6 weeks later after that podcast, he signs for Brentford, which is funny because the director of football just comes up to us and said, "Thank you for alerting us to this player that we never knew about." But obviously they did, because he's at their sister club in Denmark. That's the whole in joke of the thing, But so he's come in and he was brilliant. He come in a pre-season friendly. We played Seville, come in 20 minutes into the game. Within 5 minutes, he had his own song. Everyone's singing about him. He scored a goal. And then he was just careering around against Arsenal. He's like a box-to-box midfielder, loads of energy. He's just the type of player that, fans just love, because he just gets stuck in. He's tackling, he's passing, but he looks like he put the ball in the back of the net as well. So I've got to give a big shout to Frank the Tank Onyeka.
Frank the Tank, that's who we need to watch out. Well, there's a couple of players that you mentioned, but Frank the Tank, that's a name and a half, so we have to watch out for him. Finally, your lineup and your score predictions for this game. So let's start with the lineup. How do you think it'll be the same lineup and Thomas Frank wouldn't change it about, or do you think he'll adapt and we might see his plan B or plan C in this game, as we're different to Arsenal?
Yeah, tell you something I don't know. I mean, the fact is that obviously we're going to be playing away from home. Which means that we expect you to be coming at us. You're probably going to have Benteke in your side as well. Yeah, we might have Eze might be there as well, and we obviously know Eze from back in the day when he played at our local rivals QPR.
He's out injured, unfortunately. He's out.
Is he still out? Oh, is he still out? Okay.
He's out till the new year. It's unfortunate, but he picked up a bad injury during summer. I think it was last season, and he's out for the year. That's the thing with Palace. In the Chelsea game, people were complaining, but we only had one new player, and we've signed lots of quality new players, but we only had one new player who started. Joachim Anderson, you might know him from Fulham. I know I don't want to talk about too much about Fulham with you, but he was at Fulham last season, and he came on. But we haven't had that many new signings that's been playing, and that's why I was a bit confused why we were going at the Patrick Vieira for the Chelsea result. We're not quite sure. Conor Gallagher might be in. He should be into the lineup. I don't know if you watched West Ham last season. So we
know Conor Gallagher from when he's at Millwall. So we know him. Yeah. Like I said, listen, we know. Like I said to you, Championship players. So for me, when they're playing in the Premier League, if they're playing as far as I'm concerned, they're Championship players. Not because I'm putting them down, but Ben White for me is a Championship player because obviously he played for Leeds. You know what I'm saying? At the time that we were playing, then Conor Gallagher was a Millwall player as well. So sort of seeing all those players. Right. So talking about the formation, we have to be wary, obviously, about your players. You've got some very good players. I know a lot of your fans might be a little bit down on how these players are, but as far as we're concerned, you've got some good players out there. So we need to be we need to be very, very wary of what you've got there. So I don't know because I'm not Thomas Frank as to whether or not he's going to keep it at 5 to the back. 5, 3 at the back, as we played against Arsenal, or he's going to flip it up, and go 4-3-3 as what we have done back in the day. What we did sort of kind of towards, most of last season, we were actually 4-3-3. We were 4-3-3 until we were getting a series of bad results around February, March. We flipped it to 3 at the back, 5 at the back, and that kind of turned things around for us. And we kind of kept it like that. Now, interestingly, what we've done is that we have brought in a central midfielder called Christopher Aja from Celtic. And he's very experienced in our books. He is anyway. He's played Champions League football. He's played Europa League football. He's played at a level which he's played against some tough teams. So he's come in and he's fitted in quite nicely into our back three because he's a ball-playing centre-back. So we've got him with Pontus Jansson and Ethan Pinnock, who actually plays for, and I know a lot of your fans probably go and watch Dulwich Hamlet because I go to see the Hamlet play as well. Like, I was down there last Saturday and I was actually there when Ethan Pinnock played for Dulwich Hamlet in his last game in the playoff final at East Thurrock, which is about 6 years ago. So after that, he went off to Forest Green, and then he's come back round. He's at Brentford, but he's a brilliant player. So you've got these three players at the back, which allows us to run the wing-back system, which has got Canos, who actually isn't a winger. I mean, isn't a wing-back. He's actually a winger. He's not a defender at all, And you've got Rico Henry, who was the best fullback in the Championship last season, arguably. I mean, we'd say that as Bees fans, and a lot of other people say that as well. So that's a system that we have been running with, and that's a system that I would say that we would probably go with because we're playing away from home at Palace. But then you never know. Again, so for the players that will play, I would say that I would have thought that they're the same. We haven't bought a right winger because we're actually a right back. Sorry, that's probably the one area that we're short of is a right back. So whether or not we'll play a right, Canos at right back again, or whether or not we'll play Roslov, I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. We've bought a winger, a guy called Vieira from Lorient. And we have a bit of a joke because actually we bought it from Lorient in France, whereas normally we're just not used to that. Normally we're not used to buying players from Orient, like Leighton Orient, in East London. So it's confused a lot of Brentford fans. It's like, so we've had to get out the translation book, which is not the East London Cockney translation book, translation, but to actually kind of find out what's going on with this guy. So so we've got this from Lorient, and whether or not he's going to come in or come off the bench, I don't know. But he was basically the replacement for Ben Rama, who we sold over a year ago. We never really replaced him, so that's going to be an interesting move. But in general, I would be looking at us being very similar to how we were last week.
I'm worried. I'll tell you this now. Chelsea played 3 at the back, and unless we change formation, Patrick Vieira did change the formation to a 4-4-2, which didn't work out at all, but he still changed it from his usual 4-3-3. Unless we match you guys, I'm fearful of the same thing that happened in the Chelsea game is going to happen to us, where you're just going to outrun all sides. Because you have 3 at the back, you have more players in midfield. You can pressure us easily off the ball. So I guess you must be happy about that news. But unless Patrick Vieira changes it, and if you guys play 3 at the back, which I think you will do, if Thomas Frank looks at the Chelsea game, he wants to play the similar style of football to what Chelsea done to us. I think it can be a very long game for us. But saying that, I'm going to quickly say my score prediction, and then I'll get yours. I'm going for 1-0. I'll be happy with a point. I respect you guys. I respect what you've done against Arsenal. I know that you got some quality ballers in your team, and you got a great manager. So if we get 1-0, first game back at Selhurst in the Premier League after a long time, I'll be happy with that. It's just a stepping stone. We have to, as I said, it's going to be a process. A point against Brentford at home would be good. We just can't lose against you guys. But I guess you see it differently. You must be optimistic that you can beat us 2 or 3-0.
No, it's not like that at all because we're pretty level-headed. Like I said, you don't forget we've been watching terrible football for all this time. So in a way, we're kind of happy to be here. Listen, we've beaten Arsenal, but we're not getting above ourselves now. Again, if you listen to our podcast, prideofwest.london, you should listen to it because it's quite funny because in this podcast, we had this I think the theme of it is that don't talk about the Arsenal match because I think we were listening to an Arsenal podcast and the Arsenal fans were saying basically they're saying, oh God, they keep on going on about the Arsenal game. They keep on going on about the game. Do they keep talking about it? I was thinking, look, I'm not being funny. We've just beaten Arsenal and we've been told not to talk about it. So we did this whole podcast where we basically were saying, look, we can't talk about the Arsenal game. And then you've got to listen to it. Then we start talking about it a bit. Then we try and stop ourselves from talking about it. So in the end of that Arsenal podcast that we didn't talk about Arsenal very much, the Crystal Palace podcast, because we didn't talk about Arsenal very much at all. I was backed into a little bit of a hole and I think I went for a Brentford victory, but they always do this. They back you up. No one's allowed to have the same score, you see. So by the time they picked their scores, I was backed up into a little bit of a hole. So, but I'll be honest with you, I'm like you. I'll be happy for a draw because this is a long-term game. It's the end of the year that we just need to be in this division. So as long as we're edging our way, point here, maybe if you get 3 points there, it'll be nice. So a nice little point down at Palace on a nice sunny day as well. Having a few beers beforehand, meeting a few of my friends, meeting a few of my Palace mates as well beforehand, and stuff like that. Just coming down and just enjoying myself and everyone goes away happy. I'll be very happy with that.
All right, I'll take that as well. So, Thomas Frank, make sure you give us a point because you're the one that's going to be under control in this game. Well, look, for your score predictions for the viewers, make sure to leave your comments down below. Thank you to Billy. That was great, just giving all the insight about Brentford. And also, Billy can in a second just plug in their side of things, so you can go listen to them, because I didn't have that much time this morning, but I know Billy sent me the link and I listened to the first 15-20 minutes of it. It was quality, so make sure you go and listen to that. And also, if you've enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. So Billy, yeah, before we go, plug it all in. Where can guys find you and all the work that you guys do?
Okay, thanks very much again for having us. And Palace fans, listen, glad you're back in your stadium. Listen, after today's game, make a lot of noise, because, like I said to you, a good set of fans down there, man. Have yourself a good season. We deserve this, man. We've been away from football for far, far, far too long, and this is about the fans. The fans are back in the stadium, so just make it safe, enjoy yourself, and enjoy your season. But for me, I'm Beesotted. We're a fanzine. We've been going on for 30 odd years. Since 1990, I think it is, which is quite a long time sort of writing fanzine. So we're a fanzine, but now we're a blog. So you can get us at beesotted.com, BEESOTTED.com. But we're also a podcast as well. You can get us on prideofwest.london. So prideofwest.london. You can get us all our podcasts. We've done 800 odd podcasts, so we've got quite a lot there as well. And we're on YouTube as well. We don't do as many videos. We used to do loads of videos, one every week from years, but we got stuff. We've got even stuff from the Euros, stuff from the World Cup, when you go out there. But we've also got our Beesotted stuff. We've actually got a little video that we put up last week from our game against Arsenal as well. You might want to just check it out. It's just a vibe thing. It's not somebody standing outside the stadium with a microphone ranting. We don't do that business. This is more of a kind of sort of documentary, just people going in, showing what the stadium's like, showing the singing, showing the noise, just getting a vibe from people about how happy they are to be in the Premier League, to be in the stadium and just watching football. So you can check it out on Beesotted 1992 on YouTube as well. So thanks again for having us, Palace, and I'll catch up with you later.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Until next time, up the Palace.